Folks, welcome to another edition in Real Estate Experts. As always, I'm your host, Glenn Twiddle, bringing you leading experts from around the country and around the world to help you, the Australian home seller, tread the minefield that is the Australian property industry. Now, today I'm bringing you an absolute icon, a representative of an iconic Australian business family who has been in real estate for most of his adult life, and certainly his family and the extended business that he works with has been in business since the 50s. I'm talking about none other than Damien Misso. Damien, thanks so much for hanging out, bud.
Glenn, thanks so much for having me.
So, mate, before we get to all of really what we're here for is to help the Aussies and help us with property and stuff, with your expertise, mate, it would be remiss of me not to ask about the family legend. Like, for our viewers who may or may not know from around the country, Trilby Misso Lawyers is one of the most famous and iconic legal firms dating back to the 50s. Tell us about Grandad's business and how that family legacy has particularly been relevant to the Redcliffe people here where you work.
Yeah, so my family moved from Sri Lanka in 1956. They came out from a boat and they actually moved to Margate on the peninsula here. And the mayor at the time actually came and knocked on the door and welcomed us to the country, which was really cool.
That doesn't happen anymore, does it?
No. And I mean, leaving Sri Lanka was a big decision because Grandad had a very successful business over there.
Right.
But he walked away in his 40s and thought Sri Lanka's not as safe an environment for him to bring the family up. So moved to Australia and started from scratch.
Yeah.
So coming to Australia, he had some principles which I think held him in high regard. Number one was he didn't believe that women should be charged for legal service.
Wow.
And he always believed that service should be done and money would take care of itself. So he had those good moral core beliefs which I think held him in good stead. And
I love that the name Trilby Misso certainly means something to your environment here. Tell us about what we were talking about off camera, about when he did pass on, what the community did for him.
Well, yeah, Trilby was very involved in the Redcliffe community, involved in just about every club and association, and he actually passed away on a Tuesday, and the local paper came out on a Wednesday, and somehow, and you would know being in media how hard it is to get something into the paper
next day
if you've missed the deadline.
Yeah.
And he was actually front page of the paper because such was his legacy with the area.
Yeah. And when we first met, I was very much, that's Damien Misso, he's part of the Trilby Misso family. Mate, tell us about how your real estate, kind of how you do the same thing that Grandad did in the legal profession, how you do that in the real estate profession, serving those Redcliffe folk.
Look, my father's been involved in real estate since 1980 and I've been in the business since 2004 and we believe that looking after the customer first and foremost is what's going to keep us in business, and it must be working because we've been able to survive a number of recessions and still continue to add value to the community.
For sure. So, and really that's kind of why I've invited you here, to really pick your brain, to help our viewers find the Damien Missos of their area, wherever they might be, because there's so many real estate agents that, like, all the real estate agents can talk the talk, and yet there's so few that have a great reputation in their area that, as you just say, add value. How do we ascertain the talkers of the talk from the walkers of the walk? How do we find a good real estate agent?
Look, I can understand the question, Glenn, because it's very difficult. Most of the real estate agents out there do look the same, and I'm sure your viewers would be concerned and confused at times because the agents say that they can get the best price, that they're number one in the area.
It's like everyone's number one, have you noticed that?
That's right, and it's impossible for everyone to be number one.
Yep.
Recently there was a study done here in southeast Queensland where 150 real estate agents were mystery shopped, and the results of the survey weren't actually very good at all. Now, what I would be asking your viewers to do would be to do a mystery shop of the agents that they maybe have on their watch list and go along to an open home and say they're just looking. Now, we all know that when we go into a store and say that we're just looking, we're not actually just looking. We're just trying to avoid the salesperson and protect ourselves.
Yeah.
And what you'll find, or your viewers will find, is that 1 in 3 real estate agents aren't actually very nice, if there's anything similar to the study that was actually done here in southeast Queensland.
Yeah, I saw that study and I thought, isn't just being nice par for the course? I was stunned when I saw that stat.
It's incredible, so easy to smile and treat people with respect.
Yeah, I saw there's like, if you go into Amazon, I noticed, because when I saw that study, it made me think about customer service. And if you go to Amazon, there's like 18,000 or 20,000 books on the subject of customer service. And that study just says 2 words: be nice. You don't need the 18,000 books, be nice. Wow. Okay, so let's say we found a nice one. What else?
The second thing is, this study highlighted, was that nearly 2/3 of those real estate agents followed up with no way, shape or form after that open home. So not a phone call, not a text message, not a letter, nothing. So what you'd be looking for, and your viewers should be looking for, is an agent that follows up in a respectful way, but isn't a stalker. Now,
where's the sweet spot? Like, what's stalking? What's too much and what's too little?
Well, I think the right amount would be actually on the day receiving an SMS with maybe a thank you, saying here's a link to the property, because quite often buyers are looking at a number of properties on the day, and they'll come home at the end of the day and sit down with family and friends, and they'll want to shortlist them all, and having everything in the one spot on their phone makes it a lot easier. So they should be receiving a text message with a link to the property. The second thing is, they should be looking forward to a phone call from the agent. If not on the Saturday, sometimes it's not always possible on a Saturday, because agents might have 10 open homes and talk to a number of different buyers. They should at least get a phone call on the Monday, because our job as an agent is to get the most we possibly can for our sellers, and we've got to do that by leaving no stone unturned. We can't just leave it to chance. So the second thing that your viewers should be looking for is an agent who follows up in a respectful manner, in a concise manner, but isn't over the top and a stalker. Yeah,
okay. Simple tips seemingly, but it seems like common sense, like in many businesses, isn't always common practice. How about at the open? Let me ask you this, because I've been to so many opens as part of my career. What should we be looking for physically at the open, perhaps in terms of marketing and things like that?
Well, marketing is such an important part of the process, because you don't want your marketing to look attractive to budget buyers. And if there's shoddy photography, average brochures, shoddy copy, it's going to appeal to a bargain buyer, because they're going to look at that and think, well, maybe this agent is one that I can pull the wool over, and maybe I can put some money in my pocket as the buyer, and the money doesn't go to the seller. So the residential home for Australians is the last tax haven, meaning that we can get no tax on any profit we get from the sale of our property. So that needs to be protected. If it's an extra $10,000, an extra $20,000, or an extra $50,000, that money needs to be fought for, and marketing is the part of the process that's going to attract the buyers who are going to be able to pay that. So you want the marketing to be emotive. You want to see that the agent cares and understands how important that is as part of the process, and they respect the need to get it right for their owner. So
definitely sounds like all agents aren't created equal, and that's certainly been my experience as well. And many of the viewers, though, many of the questions that they ask me to ask my guests like yourself, have as a kind of a basis that all agents are the same. How do I pick the best of the worst kind of thing? But let me ask you this. If all agents aren't created equal, there are some agents that seem to be almost like in today's market, seem to be that they'll sell a home almost for free. And then there's some agents that seem like it's going to be a year of my salary in order to pay this person, and everywhere in between. How do we tread the minefield of getting value for money and not have an agent that can have the wool pulled over their eyes, but someone who can truly, as you say, work for the seller and get that top dollar for us, but make sure that we're paying a reasonable fee for it? Tell us about that. How do we tread that minefield?
Well, the most important thing for your viewers is to get the best possible deal you can, because it makes sense. It's an important transaction. Your viewers need to feel comfortable that they're getting the best possible deal.
So when you say deal, is that the cheapest guy?
No, not necessarily. You want to get the best value. Now, there are agents out there that will give free marketing. They'll offer discount commission. They might even cap it at a certain figure. Now, I can understand on the surface that looks attractive. But when you really think about it, and sometimes an agent, when you're talking to them at the listing presentation, they might reduce their fee in 2 questions. Now, they've panicked, in my opinion. They've shown their hand, because if they're prepared to give away their own money, ultimately it could be food off their family's table to make a sale. Well, then what are they going to be like when a buyer is putting forward an offer which is okay? Are they really going to fight? Are they going to find that hidden 10%? Or are they going to let that buyer take that hidden 10% and leave it out of the pockets of the seller?
Let me ask you this, because we're getting really into a question that if there's, say, an average home in the Brisbane suburbs, which where we are, might be $400,000 or $500,000. So there might be $40,000 or $50,000 that's this hidden 10% that we're talking about. First off, tell us about, what do you mean by this hidden 10%?
So most agents, Glenn, with a traditional method will put a price on a property, and then buyers will negotiate on their way down. And there might be a 3 to 5% gap between the final sale price and the original listed price. Now, a skilled negotiator can quite often sell a property for above the asking price, because what they've done is they've used a process where they've attracted as many buyers as possible to the home, created competition, and we all know what happens when there's competition. People will try and win, and they will pay above the odds to secure the property. And that is where, if you look at maybe selling 5% over the asking price versus selling 5% under the asking price, there's your 10%.
And I know from some of the properties I've bought, I've been able to purchase and secure properties cheaper than that 5% differential. So these are very realistic figures. If my viewers go and take your advice like that, like you just mentioned, to go and secret shop the agents, to try and ascertain and find the person who can add that value and get that 50 grand in their pocket versus in the pocket of that buyer, is there a question my viewers could ask at the open that would kind of, as you say, show the agent's hand early so they can really see? What would be a great answer or a great question to ask, and what would be a great answer that one of our viewers might ask an agent at an open home that kind of would identify a good negotiator from someone who's going to potentially just get the property sold at any price?
It's a really simple question, Glenn, and it's what would the owner take? What's the lowest price the owner would take? And it's quite often that an agent will actually blurt out a price.
Lower than the asking price?
Lower than the asking price.
Wow.
Which is just craziness to me. I mean, what they should be looking for is a respectful rejection of that. Maybe a simple question like, and have some fun with it. Like, I mean, I like to have some fun with it. Glenn, if you can ask me the question.
Okay, so Damien, I love this place. It's beautiful. It's on the river. Mate, how much do you think the owners will take? What do you reckon the lowest price is I could get this for?
Well, it's currently listed for $700,000, so I know they'll take that. Glenn, what would be the highest price you would pay?
That's good, because it puts it back on them, doesn't it?
That's right.
Wow. And I love that. Do you use humour in your negotiations? Is that part of the reason that one of the weapons you use to get those high prices that you're renowned for?
Well, as I said earlier, Glenn, the first thing we've got to do as real estate agents is be nice, and we've got to build rapport with people and make them feel comfortable. I don't want the selling process to be difficult, and I don't want the purchasing process to be difficult.
Nice. All right, so say we find a couple of agents that are looking like they tick some of the boxes. How do we then narrow it down from 2 or 3 that are nice, that do some semblance of follow-up and maybe answer that question well? How do we kind of do that final shortlist to go from 2 or 3 to 1?
Well, it's really interesting, Glenn, and your viewers need to be concerned and aware that if an agent is presenting their fee and their giveaways on their signboards and in all of their marketing, why aren't they presenting their service? If their only point of difference is that they have the cheapest fee, what are they really giving you? Now, recently, I had to get my wisdom teeth extracted. So I went to my dentist. I've got a good relationship with my dentist. He said, look, Damien, it's probably a little bit too difficult after looking at the x-ray, too difficult for me to extract it. I'm going to refer you to a surgeon. So he sent me to a surgeon, and that surgeon sat me down and he had some case studies of people he'd been able to help before who'd been in a similar situation to me. And he talked me through all of the pros and cons of what might happen, how to recover. It made me feel really comfortable, and I moved forward. When I was going to see his assistant to talk to them about when I could get booked in and how much it cost, at no point did they say, well, you're getting 2 teeth out, Damien, we're going to give you 1 for free.
Yeah, okay.
They didn't try and tempt me to do business with them by saying, here's some free anaesthesia or we'll take care of the hospital. Now,
And it didn't cross your mind either to ask those things, I'm sure.
no, and if they did offer it to me, I'd probably feel really uncomfortable because my teeth are important. It's something that's going to be with me for the rest of my life. And similarly, when your viewers are looking for an agent, if there's that hidden 10%, that hidden 50,000, that could set them up for the rest of their life. So,
Well, how long would it take the average Aussie to save 50,000?
a long
Years.
time. That's right. When you think of tax and living expenses, I mean, it could take them a long time. So, I guess in answer to your question, Glenn, around fee, your sellers should be looking for the best deal, but ultimately the best agent, because the best agent is going to put the most amount of money in their bank account at the end of the transaction. So therefore, by doing that, they actually become the cheapest.
That's the best deal is that agent that gets the 50, even if that does cost an extra 2,000 or 3,000 above that discounted agent.
That's right.
I love it. Excellent, mate. So that leads me to my next question. You mentioned about that in your consumer guide. You've got that document that you created giving some of these tips away. And by the way, I've got to hit you up for a copy of that for our viewers. So, mate, I know you normally sell it, but can I get cheeky and ask for a copy?
Of course, Glenn. It would be my pleasure.
Excellent, guys. We'll just pop the link up there to grab a copy of Damien's consumer guide containing a lot of these tips. In that consumer guide, you mentioned this mistake that you've seen so many property sellers out there, I suppose, fall for, if we could call it that. What's that mistake and why is it so costly and so easy to kind of fall for that trap?
Look, it's really common in the industry, Glenn, and it's actually got a term, and it's called buying the listing.
Okay, what's that?
And look, it repulses me when I see it. And I think some agents out there actually have it as their guide on how they manage the process. And it's where an agent will take a listing on to the market at any price, sometimes $50,000 or $100,000 over what it looks like the market will bear. And then what they'll do, those agents, is they will then beat those sellers down in price with low market price feedback, get them to a point over a period of time where they will accept an average offer. Now, on the surface, that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I'm sort of thinking, does it not make some sense to start with a pie in the sky figure? What if someone's willing to jag it and then come down if it's not going to work there?
Yeah, on the surface, Glenn, that actually sounds like it's an okay strategy, but what actually happens is the opposite, because if a property comes to the market, it's brand new, no one's seen it. It's like Apple releasing an iPhone, everyone should be excited about it. Now, if the property that one of your viewers is putting to the market comes on above where it should be, at maybe $50,000 or $100,000 over, the perfect buyer might be in the market, they won't see it and they'll miss it. And then what will happen is, if over time the listing comes down in price, so it might take 6 or 7 weeks to come down to the range where the perfect buyer might see it, A, that buyer still needs to be around. They might have bought something else and be gone. But B, if they are still in the market, they're probably going to smell a rat because they're going to say, well, this one's been on the market for how long? 6 or 7 weeks. What's wrong with it? So it ultimately then puts the negotiation power back in the hands of the buyer, and it becomes a bit of a lose-lose situation for the seller. Ultimately, what you want to happen, and your viewers should be looking to do this, is put the property on the market at an attractive price where a multitude of buyers can fall in love with the property at the same time. Because if that happens, everyone's excited, there's a lots of buzz around the property and what we call the prime selling time. Now, as we've been in the real estate industry, my father's been in since 1980 and I've been in for 2004. We actually have perfected the process and mastered
So
over
decades of experience have put this where we need to be as far as skill is concerned.
That's correct, yeah. So we've been able to create competition and use our skills, and then what will actually happen is, because people are competing, we can achieve above the ask. And it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens in a reasonable amount of time, and the owners don't have to worry about keeping their home on the market and their life on hold, and they get a great price at the end of it, which makes us all very happy.
Excellent. So my next question is around, because you mentioned just now about how good marketing gets all these buyers interested in those early stages, so they all are there at the same time. Your marketing skills and prowess are quite well renowned. That's why we're talking. Tell us about the importance of marketing and what sort of would constitute, say our viewers go to the open home. What should they be on the lookout for to know they're in the hands of a good marketer?
Yeah, so Glenn, I look at marketing much like most people look at insurance of a motor vehicle. So your viewers probably have a car in their driveway at the moment which might be worth, say, $30,000. Without even thinking about it, each year your viewers would probably pay insurance of up to $800 or $1,000 to protect themselves against an accident. Now, there's absolutely no guarantee that within a 12-month period that they're going to make a claim.
That's right.
They might have that car for 5 years, say, maybe a bit longer, so they'll spend between $4,000 and $5,000 protecting a $30,000 asset on the hope that they maybe might have an accident and be covered.
Wow.
Yeah, whereas most homes are between $400,000 and $500,000, and as a percentage, we're not asking for the same amount of insurance, maybe between 0.5%, maybe 1% of the total value of the property, to promote it in a way that brings as many buyers as possible. So some of the things they should be looking for is good quality brochures, good quality photography, a floor plan, a well-written ad, not just an ad that's a couple of dot points and looks like someone's rushed it just to whack it on the internet. It needs to be looked like it's been put together and launched like a new product should be. And there is one other thing, which is, of course, video as well.
Yeah, tell us about video, because I've seen some of your work. They look like they're pretty expensive. They look like short films, because I've seen some videos that do look cheap. They're like the pictures put to music. But yours look like, you know, Oliver Stone Productions. Tell us, are those things as expensive as they look?
They're not as expensive as they look, and I mean, the worst thing that could happen to an owner is they spend maybe an extra $1,000 on marketing. So most of our campaigns, if they're a $400,000 property, are less than $2,000, and that's including the video, the photography, the floor plan, and everything packaged together. And we can tailor it to suit an owner's needs. It's not one size fits all. Owners can pick and choose, but the value of video, and we've been an innovator around marketing for many, many years. In the early 2000s, before professional photography was the norm, we saw an opportunity to get on board with it, because we thought if a picture tells 1,000 words, we want that story to tell an emotive story and appeal to as many buyers as possible. Now that we can put together a production of a video, we think of it like it's 1,000 pictures with a soundtrack. And
I noticed with those videos, you're in them. Tell us about the value of you being in them, and does that relate to how the buyers are interacting with you once you finally meet them face to face?
Yeah, well, ultimately, everyone's short on time these days. Our sellers are short of time. They don't want people coming through who are unqualified. And our buyers are short on time and they've got a lot of choice. So the video with me being in there, and sometimes I even get the owners, if they want to as well, to come in and tell their story.
Nice.
Because an owner knows more about the property and can speak with probably more passion than me, in all honesty. I mean, I'm a pretty passionate guy, but no one can really tell the story of what it's like to live in a house.
And they knew what attracted them to the house in the first place, so they'll very clearly be able to articulate that. So I love that unique strategy that I've seen you employ.
Yeah, and because if you think about it, if you're similar, you have a similar family size, or maybe slightly younger family than what, you know, someone's moving on, and you can connect to someone who's got similar interests, there's the power of connection. And ultimately what our marketing is aimed at doing is making people excited about a property before they see it. You think most people are going to see a property online before an open home. Kids might have gone to sleep, wife might be looking through realestate.com or Domain and might fall in love with a property and say, honey, come and have a look at this. And they're really excited and there's a buzz about it. That's what we want to create, because you can think about the anticipation before they get to the home, and then if they get to the home and there's 20 or 30 other people there, they're not going to muck around. They're going to be serious and they're going to do whatever it takes if they've fallen in love with the property to secure it, which means that our sellers and your viewers, if your agent employs that strategy, are going to be in the box seat.
So tell us, how does that relate back to that insurance analogy? How does quality marketing akin to what you were talking about insuring a car?
Yeah, so with insurance, you're protecting yourself against an outcome. Now with marketing, it's much the same. If you undermarket your property, and undermarketing it might only be the difference of $1,000, potentially if there's 5 or 10 buyers who don't come and see it, you could leave $50,000 on the table. So it's quite costly if you undermarket your home and leave that hidden $50,000 on the table. Whereas if you overmarket or overinsure, you might spend an extra $1,000. So it's much less risky to overmarket and get a fair price than it is to undermarket and get a low price.
Yeah, so it's insurance against potentially underselling the property to one of those bargain hunters you mentioned.
And it's tax-free. Every dollar's tax-free, so it's really double the bang.
Yeah, that's right. Wow. So certainly been a pleasure picking your brains, Damien. I hope you guys agree that another real estate experts interview in the can. Do avail yourself of that consumer guide because it's got so many great tips for you to tread that minefield, to follow Damien's advice and find that agent that can find that hidden $50,000 and make sure it goes in your pocket, not in the pocket of your buyer. Damien Misso, thank you so much, bud.
Thank you, Glenn. It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, folks, with another edition of Real Estate Experts, I'm Glenn Twiddle. Bye for now.